Congratulations, Dr. Campbell. I would now ask you to address Convocation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, members of the graduating class, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm smiling because, first of all, it's so wonderful to be here and to see these wonderful young graduates from this, and to get to know this great university. I'm also smiling because I've gotten this wonderful degree and I haven't had to work as hard as you have. And maybe I'm also smiling because I'm from Vancouver. So. In my brief remarks to you this morning, I thought I'd like to share with you some of the things that my longish life experience has taught me, and which I hope you might find useful. You can think of it sort of as a geezer's guide to life. Let me start with 3 observations. When I was your age, many quite intelligent people shared the Marxist view that history is driven by impersonal forces, the dynamic of class struggle, and therefore that individuals and communities do what they are preordained to do, sort of history on autopilot. And thus there are no great men or women, really only people pursuing their class interest. Today, evolutionary psychology looks for explanations for many human motivations, and its insights are very enlightening. Other people see fate or divine providence as the explanation for everything. But in my view, we can still say that people do make history. They make choices, and leaders can draw on whatever dynamics of our very complex human identities suit their purposes. For example, Adolf Hitler pressed one set of buttons on Germans in the 1920s and 30s, and Nelson Mandela drew on a totally different set of qualities in Black South Africans at the end of apartheid. Each community perceived itself to be aggrieved, but how those grievances were translated into action was very much a function of leadership. I don't think anyone would argue that history would have unfolded in the same way if either Adolf Hitler or Nelson Mandela had never existed. So it matters who leads. I, for one, never trust a leader who appeals primarily to my anger. Like most people, I have buttons that can be pushed, and I can be provoked to anger. In such a situation, I am likely to give expression to feelings that don't, in the end, make me a better person and get in the way of actually solving the problem. Secondly, when I read a newspaper, I find, more and more these days, that reading the obituary articles is very instructive. I particularly like the New York Times and the Lives Lived feature in the Globe and Mail. Sometimes these articles are about famous people, but just as often they are about interesting people that I've never heard of before. Perhaps they made important scientific or technical discoveries, or were creative artists, or made their communities better in one way or another. But rarely are the people who are recognized in these articles people of high social standing. Often their beginnings were humble. What made them special was a desire to succeed, often a passion for some area of pursuit, or a deep-rooted desire to leave the world better than they found it. Frequently, they are people who had unusual interests or ideas to led to them being criticized or even laughed at. But they followed their own voices and left wonderful legacies of ideas or devices or works of art. It is inspiring to read these descriptions of lives well lived, especially because we can all develop the qualities that enabled them to reach their potential. I used to tell my own students when I taught university that they had no idea what they were capable of achieving. Only time, commitment, effort, and the steady pursuit of ideas and goals would eventually show them. If they persevered, they would no doubt surprise even themselves. The great American inventor Thomas Edison was right when he said that genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And finally, the older I get, the more I see the wisdom of Sigmund Freud's observation that the secret to happiness is love and work. Meaningful work, not necessarily the best paid, but work that makes you feel that you are doing something worthwhile, is extraordinarily satisfying. When you enjoy what you are doing, you jump out of bed in the morning. The days race by, And you're faintly surprised that someone is actually paying you. When you hate your work, you can barely drag yourself out of bed. The days are 36 hours long, and nobody can pay you enough to do it. If you ever find yourself feeling that way about what you're doing, think about making a change. As for love, loving and being loved are the essence of being human. Not just romantic love, although that is a great and wonderful thing, but the love of family, friends, even your pet. Love means making another life important in your own. I agree with the thinkers of the Scottish Enlightenment who believed that the basis of morality is fellow feeling or empathy, and the ability to love is the foundation of empathy and thus of true morality. So based on these observations, here is some advice. First, realize that history doesn't make history, people do. Care about the way you are governed and led. Embrace the responsibilities of citizenship, and do not delude yourself into thinking that because the political process in your country is flawed, it is beneath you to engage in it. I work around the world with societies that are trying to build democracies, and so I know that in many ways we're very lucky here in Canada. But democracy is a blunt instrument, not a precision tool. It is always a work in progress, and each generation has to keep working at it. Over the centuries, people have paid with their lives to build liberty, the rule of law, and representative institutions. Even today, people are putting their lives on the line for democracy. Few of us will ever be asked to pay so dearly for these values, but we should be ready to devote part of our lives to protecting freedom and fairness. It is not enough to live history. We should all try, in our own way, to make it. Secondly, don't be afraid to work hard and even to fail. Failure is feedback. Many truly accomplished people point to monumental failures in their lives, which they came to consider among their most valuable experiences. But just as you need to believe in your own possibilities, believe in those of others also. And finally, know what is important. Respect yourself enough to use your energies and your talents in ways that build your sense of self-worth, not self-importance. Look for opportunities to love, so that the reality of other lives will always touch you. Assume that you will live to a ripe old age and ask yourself how you would like to be remembered in the New York Times or the Globe and Mail at the end of your lives, or the Peterborough Inquirer. Then live in such a way as to make it happen. Thank you for the honor of sharing your special day. Your degrees reflect qualities of discipline and character that should give you the confidence to tackle whatever challenges you want to meet. And as a geezer among you, I can tell you all of it is possible. Congratulations and best wishes for a wonderful future.